Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. It's actually a very good time to be dividing snowdrops. They finished flowering, but they're still in the green. They're still full of life and vigour. So when you lift a clump and just pull it apart like that and replant them, next January, they will flower better than they would have done if you just left them where they were. Come on. Why, Nigel, is my ball in there? Nigel is working on the theory that if you plant a nice slimy little tennis ball, it may go forth and multiply. Hasn't worked yet, Nigel.
This week, Carol is starting a major new project, helping a young couple turn their empty patch into a beautiful garden.
We've got a year, haven't we? And you can do so much in there, and I really feel we can transform the place.
Jo is in Northumberland, meeting a gardener who's made a stunning garden, despite having to deal with the extremes of hot, dry summers and bitterly cold winters.
I think that you can make a garden anywhere, whatever the conditions, providing you look at the native plants that grow round about.
Yeah, I can see why you moved here and did it. It's absolutely stunning.
And we meet a Cotswold grower whose boyhood enthusiasm for bees and butterflies has led him to amass Buddleia in all their fabulous forms.
When butterflies come into the garden, they're actually looking for a nectar source. They're sort of on a pub crawl. They come here for the beer festival.
This pot should be giving me some spring colour, with tulips coming through, which will flower in a few weeks' time, and plenty of colour underneath. Well, as you can see, there's absolutely nothing, and the reason is I forgot. I could and should have planted tulips as late as January. I didn't. But the situation can be salvaged. You can still get spring colour into your containers as late as now, and the basis of the best spring colour, I think, comes from violas. Not a grand plant or fancy, but the colours can be so sumptuous. Look at these beautiful, rich, velvety tones. Because this display is only going to be here for about 6 to 8 weeks, we don't need a lot of very rich soil. But I'm just topping up what was already in here, as much as anything else, to raise the level. And then when it comes to the summer and autumn planting, all this soil will go and be replaced to give it new goodness. Now, the centrepiece is Euphorbia amygloides, which is a variety called Ephanthia, which I haven't grown before, but these amygloides are all fairly similar. And what they have is this good, strong, russet colour with the intensity of Euphorbia. No other plant gives you that electricity, particularly in April. So that can go in the middle like that. It's not going to get much bigger over the next few weeks. I've thought of adding heucheras, entirely for the foliage. This is a variety called mahogany. I think it's just purpley, magenta-y enough to complement the colours I want from the violas. But I'll pop that in there, like that. With large pots like this, threes work very well because it gives room for a variety of plants, but it also gives it a rhythm. So we'll go here. Now, because I want an instant hit of colour, I'm going to cram every available space. There's no attempt to let plants grow into the space. This has got to work from the minute I plant it till the middle of May, by which time it can be exhausted. It doesn't matter. So it's a sprint, not a marathon. And we'll just open that out, and we'll just start to plant them in and around. Violas and pansies, the same family, but pansies are bigger. And blausia to an extent, but I'm not looking for subtlety. I want strength of colour and a little bit of drama. Perfect for this mix. Well, I think that's looking good now. It'll get better over the next few weeks, but the truth is, this is instant gardening. and none the worse for it. But Carol is embarking on a project which is the exact opposite, because she will be guiding a couple over the next year on the development of their garden. They know what they want, but they don't know how to get there.
Dan and Dominique bought their first home together 3 years ago. With internal renovations over, it's time to tackle the garden. It's north-facing, and at 150 square metres, it's your average UK back garden. It's pretty much a blank canvas.
This is the year we're going to try and sort out the mud plane, as we're calling it.
About this summer, we're going to get the garden fixed.
The gardens I loved when I was little were the ones that were completely wild, like cottagey gardens. It would be great if this was just a riot of colours and textures and, you know, height. So we'd like some lawns so we could sit out and have a picnic and play.
Dan and Dominique have made a start with some raised beds and some chickens, but they've got no idea where to turn next. This is their first garden. They want it to be a place where they can grow food, enjoy beautiful flowers, relax with their daughter and entertain. So I'm going to spend the year helping them out.
We're kind of hoping that Carol's going to bring sort of knowledge of how we make the most of plants, which plants actually are going to work well together. So we would love to think we were up and running by the end of this season, really.
Their garden's already split into 3 main areas: a patio, an area perfect for a lawn, and a veg plot. I can't wait to get stuck in with them. Hello. Well, I'm Carol.
Hey.
And Dan.
Hi.
And you're Dominique.
Yeah, Dom.
And this is Finna. Hiya, Finna. And this is your veg patch.
Yeah, this is it at the moment, yeah.
So is that a big priority for you, growing your own
Yeah,
food?
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
we get eggs regularly, but we've never really utilised the raised beds all through the seasons. Like we have one hit in the summer, and that's it. And then it's like this for the rest of the time.
Raised beds are perfect for small spaces. And I know that this summer, with careful planning, these veg beds will be much more productive. But the other areas will be more of a challenge. Come and show me the rest of your garden. The middle section is where Dan and Dom want to create their lawn. It's also the place for them to indulge in flowers. I think the thing is, when you're taking on a new garden, you need to really find out about your soil. It's always going to be a sort of compromise. And sometimes, if you're lucky, a joining together of what you can grow and what you want to grow. So you've got quite heavy clay soil by the look of it. It's liable to be alkaline.
So does that push us down a certain type of plant? Or?
Well, if it is alkaline, you're not going to be able to grow masses of rhododendrons and azaleas. And anyway, they wouldn't go here. Yeah. They wouldn't look right, would they? As you look around, you know, you've got this sort of little green tapestry beginning to emerge, but a lot of it is weeds. Now, their country name is pilewort. You can see why it gets its vernacular name. Every single one of these little rhizomes will make a totally fresh plant, so really we need to get rid of them. And that's true of any perennial weed. And a perennial weed is one that will just come up year after year after year. Dan and Dominique have their work cut out digging up those weeds if we're to lay a lawn next time I come. Meanwhile, I've spotted a plant that could be rejuvenated.
At our wedding, we had our table names as herbs, and at the end, a good friend of ours gathered them up and gave them back as a wedding present in a lovely planter.
I think you could resurrect it. Let's get rid of the moss, first of all. All you're going to do is bend these little branches down. But then if we pile some of this soil, which is loam-based, and it's much more the sort of thing that this would love. So I've just got the ends of these protruding, but it's still going to try and fling itself up. So if we just weight those little branches down with a stone, and we can do it with all of them, actually, right the way round here. And you should get new plants growing on each of these branches. So that's your first bit of propagating, your first new plants. And I think you need a nursery bed.
Yeah.
Somewhere you can divide stuff, push it in, yeah? Shall we go and have a look? I brought you some snowdrops, so we'd be able to do that too. Because anything you get given, anything you want to divide, any seedlings you want to plant out, they'll just increase in size in here. This nursery bed will be a true investment for the future of Dan and Dom's garden. It's the first step for them to get growing.
It'll be very interesting to see how the garden develops over the coming year. Well, let's see how the pond is looking after its winter. It's been full of frogs, so the wildlife is good. But at this stage of the year, the important thing is to do a bit of spring cleaning. The water is still cold, even if the days are warm, so it's a bit early to be planting anything. Wait till the water doesn't feel cold to the touch, and believe you me, that feels freezing. The really important thing at this stage is to get rid of all the dead material, because it will rot down and make the nutrient levels in the water too rich. And that feeds the algae. And then there's a whole series of problems. Now, I don't know if you can see, but we've got a lot of leaves actually on the bottom here. Ooh, look at that gunk. That's exactly what you don't want in a pond. Decomposing vegetation. It's fine to be cleaning them even if you've got frog spawn, because at the moment it's in clumps and you can see it, and it doesn't mind being moved as long as you're just gentle. I've got water mint and water forget-me-not, which is spreading very well, and that's good for wildlife, but a little too well. So by weeding it back, I'm creating scope for more to grow and leaving some more open water. Rather than take this to the compost heap, where it will eventually go, I'm going to tip it out by the side of the pond for a day or so. And that's to let all the little creatures go back into the water, and they will. And it is actually teeming with life. There's a dragonfly larvae. Now, you can have a garden pond of almost any size in any garden, and they add a kind of calmness and balance to a garden. But Joe has been visiting a series of gardens that are working with extremes. And this week, he's in Northumberland, looking at a garden facing huge challenges.
Hot, dry summers and bone-chilling winters, Northumberland has the most extreme climate. And here in this hidden valley, the weather plays particularly harsh tricks, which makes gardening all the more challenging. But look at this. Huge borders, mainly built up of perennials in drifts and blocks, tearing up and combining beautifully together. Now, this is a frost hollow. It can get to more than 10 degrees lower here than the surrounding areas. It's a real geographical cold spot, which makes this garden even more impressive.
Garden writer Susie White and her husband David Oakley have been developing their garden here over the last 3 years. But the conditions have proved tough, even for an experienced plantswoman like Susie.
Susie, how extreme is the weather here? How cold does it get?
It's pretty extreme. It can be -18, we've known it in the winter, and plus 30 in the summer, so that's almost a 50-degree swing,
Yeah.
which really makes it difficult for plants.
So do you get a lot of snow here?
Yes, we get quite a lot of snow. We've been snowed in for 2 weeks, that's the most. Because we're in the bottom of the valley, the cold air runs down the hillsides and collects in the bottom, making it really icy in winter.
And did you know that before you started to garden here?
Well, I did have an idea, but actually the amount took me by surprise. Yes.
It looks great.
It's beautiful.
I have to say, I mean, you can plant on quite a big scale here. These borders are enormous.
I wanted to have the feeling of an exploded meadow so that it fits in with the local meadows and didn't look out of place. I have to make sure it's meticulously weeded in March, and then it's sort of set for the summer. And then once the plants have grown up, it means that they prevent the light getting and a lot of weed seeds. So
you're actually planting really densely
Very.
together. Are there any other advantages of that?
well, it prevents water loss off the soil. So in a place that gets so hot in the summer, that's very, very helpful.
Yeah. That's interesting that you pack the plants tighter to actually to retain moisture. You would have thought that they'll be
Yes.
taking all the moisture out of the soil.
Well, I suppose they are feeding on the moisture, but they're preventing water loss and evaporation from the soil.
Yeah.
And they're shading, so they're actually keeping the soil a bit cooler.
Susie's also cleverly designed her planting to work almost like a calendar, moving through from early summer to late autumn.
I had hot colours at the front, fading to cooler colours at the back to increase the sense of space,
Yeah, it's a good trick, that,
to
isn't
make it feel larger. So I literally just, painted with plants.
Yeah, you just had lots of
Yes.
plants. That must have been really good fun.
Oh, fun. And very free, like painting on a canvas.
How do you go about choosing the right plants? Is it trial and error?
I looked at the plants that were growing in local meadows and then chose cultivated varieties of those, as well as lots of native plants, so they are tough. There's the angel's fishing rods,
Yeah.
which I never thought I'd be able to grow in this frost hollow, but they're surviving happily. I'm restricted by the amount of types of thyme I can grow. There's one thyme, though, that has done really well, and that's Thymus longicornis, and I've put it on either side of the path to the greenhouse, and it's spread in this huge mat, so that's lovely.
Now, what would your advice be to someone who faces challenges like this?
You can't get away from the fact that you need to work hard, but I think that you can make a garden anywhere, whatever the conditions, providing you look at the native plants that grow round about and try not to force a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, I can see why you moved here and did it. It's absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
We've had some absolutely fantastic spring weather. And these warm days mean that the tender plants that I've been protecting all winter are growing well. And of course, it's a good idea to put them outside. But a word of warning. If you get good weather at this time of year during the day, it tends to mean cold nights. And the difference in temperature can be about 20 degrees or more. And this poor, tender growth is not yet hardened off. It's not equipped to deal with that kind of temperature shift. So if you're putting plants outside, have some protection to hand. Horticultural fleece is ideal. You could use old net curtains. Anything that can breathe, but will form a layer of warm air around the plant. And all you have to do, if you feel the chill coming on in the evening, is just wrap around the plant, like this fuchsia. If it's going to be windy, just tie it loosely with a piece of twine. And that's enough protection to allow that new growth to harden off. And in a few weeks' time, you won't have to worry about it. Now, you may not have any tender plants to protect, but here are some jobs you can be doing this weekend.
Slugs love a juicy young seedling and can rip through a whole tray of them in a matter of hours. If you set beer traps by pouring beer into a container or two and setting these amongst the plants, the slugs will always go for the beer and drown. It's tempting to hang on to every last seedling, but now is the time to be ruthless and thin them so that they are evenly spread and each individual has plenty of room to develop. And if you're growing in plugs or soil blocks, take them down to one healthy plant per unit. You'll get better plants as a result and save yourself a lot of time and trouble later on. Although the ground is beginning to warm up and you can start sowing salad crops now, they will germinate and develop slowly. However, if you put out young plants, and if you haven't raised any yourself, you can buy these, they will develop more quickly. Space them about 6 inches apart and then protect them from the cold with fleece or a cloche, and they'll give you a harvest while your seed-sown ones are developing.
I'm going to prune my Buddleias. And the reason for doing this is not just to promote new flowers, because this is Buddleia Davidii, which flowers on new growth, but also to keep the shape, because if you leave it, it gets bigger and bigger, and the flowers remain taller and taller, higher and higher up, and down below, it's shaded out, and you just get this rather woody, untidy, scrubby shape. So we keep a good shape and have new flowers. About 10 years ago, I would have advised pruning it right down to the bottom buds and keeping it really compact so it was all new growth. But increasingly, I feel that it's better to just take off about a half or a maximum of 2/3 of Buddleias. That keeps them bigger and also takes away competition for light from surrounding plants. Now, when you're pruning, the same rules apply to Buddleia as anything else, which is that the weakest growth is cut hardest. So here we've got a really weak stem next to a really strong one. So the strong one, I'll just take off there and there. But the weak one, I'll take off right down at the bottom. There we go. Now, I've got quite a few Buddleias here at Longmeadow, ranging in colour from pure white through to a lovely, rich, intense purple. But Andrew Bullock in the Cotswolds has got hundreds of them.
I think my sort of interest in Buddleias goes back to when I was a child, coming home from school in my grandparents' garden. Every July, August, this sort of plant would appear, and then these wonderful creatures would land on it, which of course were butterflies. For anyone who's sort of interested in wildlife, then this plant is a bit of a must, really. When butterflies come into the garden, they're actually looking for a nectar source. So you can think of it that they're sort of on a pub crawl. Each butterfly's going looking for nectar. And when they come in here, they can have a drink, they can go to another garden, get another drink, they can top up. So if you've all got Buddleias in your garden, the butterflies can do the pub crawl, and then they can come here for the beer festival. What they're trying to do, particularly in late summer, is build up for hibernation. We have all the hibernating British butterflies here. We have peacock, tortoiseshell, comma, butterflies that hibernate. We've got about 30 species, but over 100 cultivars. I think it's about 127. The spectrum of colours for Buddleias is quite large. You can have white, all shades of blue, from a very pale blue, deep blue, into purple. There's some nice sort of pinks into maroon. And then the Weyeriana Buddleia produces a lovely yellow plant later in the summer, and also a creamy apricot colour. So there's quite a good palette. This is one of my favourites. It's Shire Blue. It was one we bred here about 10 years ago. I like it because it's got really large creamy blue panicles and really good grey foliage. It's a nice one to have the back of a border because it can give you good height, or you can prune it lower and bring it more forward. I tend to prune Buddleias April time. Some people like to do it at the end of winter in February, March, but I find if you do that, then the Buddleias bloom in July. By doing them a little bit later, say April, they then tend to bloom in August. That's the best time for attracting the butterflies. If you've got 2 or 3 Buddleias, why not stagger the pruning? A good thing to keep the Buddleia blooming is to keep deadheading it. If you're very clever, you can keep Buddleias flowering from July right through to October. Where you've got a triangle of flowers and the 2 smaller ones either side haven't flowered yet or just coming into flower and the one in the centre has gone over, take the centre one out, then the energy goes into the 2 side ones. Or if the whole head has gone over, take the whole head off and then the plant will carry on flowering elsewhere. I feel that everybody should have at least 1 Buddleia in their garden. They're beautiful things. They're good to teach children about wildlife. I mean, let's face it, if it wasn't for a Buddleia back when I was a child, I may not be here now. What we must do is fill our gardens with nectar-attracting plants, and then we can do our bit for future generations so they can enjoy these wonderful jewels of the air, which is what we have here today.
Come on, you old softy. Come on, let's move this.
It's already been a fabulous year for rhubarb. We picked rhubarb and ate it on Christmas Day. And what you see here is the 3rd picking. When you're collecting rhubarb, don't use a knife, but pull it. You just take a stem, hold it at the bottom, and tear it off. Rhubarb has a delicious astringency. There's no pudding better than a hot rhubarb crumble. The crumble itself just slightly gooey. It's soaking up the juices. Absolutely delicious, maybe with a little bit of cream. Well, that is it for today. Bye-bye.